Welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.
An accent. We need God. Because only God can bring us out of this mess.
Good morning. My name is Mike Haynie. I'm sitting in for Doni Glover. I didn't realize there were so many various shots of Doni, but there was one in particular with that opening dialogue that, we need God, and particularly as you look at what's happening in our world and our environment. But Doni's off today, enjoying some much deserved time off. And so I agreed to host a show, and we're going to focus today on local politics and the political races here in the state of Maryland and Baltimore in particular. And I have two great guests for you today. But let's talk a bit about the climate and the environment, particularly in Baltimore, regarding politics. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to tune into this wonderful program that Doni hosts daily. And he had candidate for state's attorney, Ivan Bates, on. And, needless to say, and we reached back out to Ivan because Ivan had to go for whatever reasons. He had to go, couldn't complete the interview. I reached out to him, as well as one of our other show hosts reached out to him to ask him to come back on so we can give Ivan an opportunity to present his platform to the people. We also have reached out to Terrell Vigaraja, who is another candidate for state's attorney here in Maryland. I talked to Terrell yesterday, and I'm waiting to hear from Terrell now to see if he'll appear on our show on Monday, so we can ensure that our viewers get a perspective of what's happening. Because I got to tell you, if this isn't the most important election in my lifetime for Baltimore and for this state, then we really haven't studied the issue. We really haven't looked at the issues to really understand how important it is that it isn't business as usual as it relates to politics. In the state of Maryland, we'll be coming off of a 8-year term of a Republican governor. Matter of fact, he was the most popular governor in the history of this state because first of all, he wasn't a usual politician, came from lines of politics with his daddy, but he was a businessman and he appealed to both sides. We didn't always agree on everything, but he was someone that people felt that they could accept. And that's why I'm so excited about the two guests we have today. They're not what I call usual politicals. They just have a passion for change. They understand that change needs to happen, and we want to hear their platforms. So we're coming off of a governor that was very popular, of a party that's not usually associated, especially in Baltimore, to what the Democrats usually are used to. And so what does party politics mean? What does it mean to be a Democrat? What does it mean to be a Republican? We did a show with the Republican gubernatorial candidate Dan Cox a couple of weeks ago, and I am so happy that we as a people looked at that. Matter of fact, it was one of our more popular interviews of a candidate, a Trump-endorsed candidate, because if we don't look at and understand what the platforms of these politicians are, be it Marilyn Mosby, be it Terrell, who is the state's attorney candidate that is being pushed and pumped by a multitude of people, including the Republican governor, be it Ivan Bates. And Ivan, if you're out there listening, or anyone connected to Ivan, come back. People need to hear you. You know, we heard Marilyn Mosby on Donnie's show a couple of days ago. We need to hear from you, Ivan. We need to hear from you. And I will personally do the interview with you so that people understand your platforms. And we're not just going to the poll, circling names on ballots and just circling ballots with no reason at all. We really need to understand who our next state's attorney is going to be. We need to understand who our next delegates are going to be. We need to understand who our next governor is going to be. And so let me bring into the stream today two candidates for delegates, names that you may have not heard of, names that aren't always out here. But let me bring in China Terrell, who's running for delegate in the 40th legislative district of Maryland first, and then we'll bring in Logan. China, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely, we're going to have you on the show because people need to. You are a new face, a refreshing face, right? That's new. And you're running against, I think you've got Ambry. And who else is in that district that you're running against that is?
Well, really, Frank Conaway Jr. has been there since
Frank
2006.
Conaway Jr. Is that a historical name that we're used to?
It is. His family is beloved. So his dad was a longtime circuit court clerk, and of course, his Belinda Conaway is the Register of Wills, and they have a new Conaway.
I like Belinda. Belinda's a very good person. I like Belinda. But the point of it is that you're running because they ain't all perfect. But let's get Logan in here. Let's get Logan. Logan, what's up? How you doing? I almost known you since you were a baby, man. And you are now running for political office. How you doing, Logan? And you're running in the 43rd district, right?
Yes, sir. We're working hard, grinding. Just got through 7 days of early voting. Our team was out there working 13 hours.
Yeah, I get it. You're supposed to work hard. You're all supposed to work hard. We got to work hard for anything we want. But you're running. First of all, they snatched a delegate away from that district, right?
Yes.
And so Kurt Anderson, Regina Boyce, and Delegate Mackie McIntosh were the three in place in that district before, right?
Yes.
And then they snatched one away. Why? Because of attrition of population, or why did they do that?
Basically, the city lost population. We lost around 15,000 people. And the other places around the state grew, like the DC suburbs have been booming. And basically someone had to be pushed into the county. And since we had two retirements with Kurt Anderson and Maggie McIntosh retiring, it was easiest for us to take that extra lose that.
So we lost population in the city, so therefore we lost representation.
Exactly.
Right? And so as a result of that, you're up there in kind of like a dogfight, man. And we want to talk about that in a minute. But let me go back to China. China, why the heck does a mom, a distinguished academic person, I think you're an alumnus of Johns Hopkins, right? You're alumnus of Johns Hopkins, right?
That's right.
You work successfully. You work successfully in nonprofits. You've done some significant social advocacy. Why put yourself out in this blood sport, man, of politics? Why are you running for delegate?
Yeah, I can tell you that. So it's not just advocacy. I have had the opportunity to really help rebuild the city. And of the people running, I'm probably the only delegate that can literally walk you through Baltimore and show you blocks that are completely improved and changed because I live here, because of the work and the results that I've been able to produce. But I'm running because I do understand how to rebuild the city, and I am doing it. And I find in the course of doing that we just don't have enough people in our political class who really understand the city's economics.
So you talked about the people that you're running against, that they don't seem to have a grasp, understanding, or effective in what it is that you perceive the people need. And that's why you're running, because you believe that the three that you're running against, I think you mentioned Conway,
I
well,
definitely believe that Frank Conaway Jr. does not have a grasp of the economics. But in general, I
well, why
believe
is he in office? Why do people support him in your estimation?
I
do
don't
people vote
I
for him
couldn't
on
answer
the
that,
track?
but I think that his family is really beloved and I love his auntie. So, I get that. And so but but the name, people go based on name recognition, and it's very difficult to pierce through the cynicism, and especially in our Black communities where literally nothing has changed. And as Logan Endow said,
Nothing has changed relative to what? Let's unpack and quantify because y'all
sure,
have I've been wide awoke. I've been
the
awoke
streets
since
are still
3 o'clock.
trashy.
I
Yeah,
have been awoke since 3 o'clock waiting for you all. So no sound bites today. You're
definitely
gonna
no.
quantify some stuff so that people really understand if they want change and people that look like China and Logan, that you all grasp and understand and compare the issues to what keeps us where we are to where you see futuristically we can go. So let's unpack what you said and quantify what you just said. Let's quantify that.
All right, let's unpack it and let's put some numbers on it. So in 2015, after Freddie Gray died, Baltimore just started shedding population. We lose 1% of our population a year. And the people we're losing working class Black residents. If we look at the data from the census, we will see that moms and kids are leaving the city. And we can tell from what the data is showing us that they're leaving because they don't feel that they have they don't feel that they have strong school options in their neighborhood. They don't believe that they can keep their kids safe in Baltimore. And then in addition to that, they don't believe that they can make more money. The reason that people flock to cities, the reason that people want to come and live in an urban area is because they know that they can make more money in an urban area. And so they compromise, sometimes the quality of life because they know they're going to be in a busy urban area with lots of traffic and with lots of noise and, less of a yard. But they do that because they expect to be able to go to the next level in life, whether that's from working class to middle class or from middle class to upper middle class. And in Baltimore, we just don't have that path for our working class people. And as a result, they're leaving the city. They can't make enough.
Let's go to Logan. Let's go to Logan because we're going to unpack that a bit further because, my thinking is that what you're laying out is not a reality for many, many people in Baltimore. It's just not a reality. Some people are just trying to survive the streets, so the class secession may not be a reality.
Yeah, no, people are not able to they're not able to improve how they live. They're not.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost back to the basics, it's almost back to the basics. But Logan, you're up in the 43rd district, and I believe the 43rd district is a bit, it's a bit more representative of what Baltimore is. I think, it's one of the districts that usually has the highest voting turnout because of its density of population. You've got poor people, you've got people well-to-do and affluent people. But your perspective of the politics in your district and why you are running and why you felt compelled to interject yourself into politics.
Absolutely. It's just, what the economy is, with this inflation that we have, a lot of our seniors, especially on fixed incomes, are struggling to survive. Gas is at $5 a gallon. Rent has gone up. Groceries
Gas is at $5 a gallon. Well, it's at $10 a gallon over in Europe.
Yeah. But things are just we have inflation. People are really struggling to survive. Everything's expensive. We have a lot of murders here in Baltimore. So really just focusing on gun violence prevention, economic relief for our seniors, making sure that we get adequate development and investment dollars. A lot goes downtown. A lot goes into the inner harbor. We also need resources up here in the northeast Baltimore. Let's fix our vacant homes. Let's bring resources home to our district to invest in communities, to invest in building generational wealth here in the North Baltimore as well.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful, Logan. So Logan, I'm gonna, you are to me, you are a native son, first of all, and someone who I've long admired, but doesn't mean you get a pass. So you've got Maggie McIntosh that was in that district, one of the more powerful politicians in the state. Mary Washington, who I believe at a point was being discerned to run as a lieutenant governor candidate with one of the major gubernatorial candidates. You've got Regina Boyce up there, who has proven to be a credible voice down in Annapolis. You had Kurt Anderson. So you have all these what I call veteran politicians up in your district, and you still have the issue. Why? What's the problem up there when you've got a McIntosh, an Anderson, a Boyce, and a Washington? Are they not doing their job?
I wouldn't say that, and the circumstances have changed. We face a crisis now after this COVID pandemic and after a surge in gun violence nationally. So we face a set of crises that we've never had before, where you have a murder a day, where you have a pandemic still raging and impacting our seniors, where you have inflation, runaway inflation that's constricting people's ability to survive. But we also have unprecedented resources. We have ARPA dollars.
What is ARPA dollars? Because our viewers may not understand this language. Yeah. We got to break it down.
Yeah, so we have billions of dollars, over $12 billion from the federal government to the state to assist with this economic and COVID crisis. We also have a surplus of several $billion at the state. So we're making sure that we invest that money intelligently, so that we focus on rebuilding our vacant homes to bring up property values, so that we focus on evidence-based gun violence interventions. So we make sure that we have school-based health centers in all of our schools, make sure that we bring the skilled trades and vocational training back to our schools as well to give kids an alternative pathway if they so choose. Really to invest in communities and families and neighborhoods in a holistic and inclusive way, to kind of get out of this intractable crisis that we have. Now, that's
listen. Let's get into a bit of your background. Then we're going to go to China and a bit more of her background. Then we're going to get back to politics, because I'm listening to both of you and some of your jargon and some of your reasoning. I don't know if people can relate that to your point of wanting to deal with the people that are affected the most. We got to break certain things down and get simplistic. Billions of dollars in surplus, billions of dollars in ARPA money, but people aren't seeing that on the streets, right? And how would they see it on the streets? And how would you get it to the streets? A murder a day, right? A murder a day, okay, big deal, right? To people to a point where they vote for you, and maybe there are some specifics that you have to address that. But let's talk about your background and qualification, Logan, and then we're going to move to China, that makes it so that you feel as though that you can effect change. First of all, as I mentioned, you're a native Baltimorean. What are some of the other attributes that you feel make you a viable candidate for delegate in a district that is, for most people's perspective, a pretty upstanding district?
Absolutely. But yes, I was raised here in Northwood in the district, came up through public schools, through Poly, and then graduating from Dunbar. Trained at Stanford and London School of Economics. I spent the past decade working on gun violence prevention and public health. So started out the school system, working on youth violence prevention in the schools, gang violence prevention in East Baltimore, led an Ebola response team in Liberia during that crisis.
Wow, an Ebola response team you led?
Yes.
Was that like the epidemic over there, kind of similar to our pandemic with coronavirus?
Absolutely. It was my first pandemic. It really started my interest in public health. We're working on the front lines, leading a contact tracing team. I was in my 20s, leading a contact tracing team in Liberia in the middle of an Ebola outbreak, making life and death decisions, and really seeing what it means to have every decision, every small decision have huge consequences. So
how did we do as a state and a country, in your estimation, to what you saw in Liberia with Ebola? How did we do with coronavirus in your estimation? What would you grade us on in this, forward moving, wonderful country of America, beautiful state of Maryland as it relates to the pandemic? How did we do?
I think, I've worked on the COVID response in the city, doing vaccine equity in the school system. And I'd give the country as a whole, like a C plus. We really need to invest in ventilation. We really need to invest in making sure all of our healthcare workers have PPE, like N95 masks and advanced masks. We really need to invest in that safety net to ensure that our nursing homes are safe, our senior citizens are safe. We have all the resources in the world in America, and the biggest return on investment that we could have is really having a robust public health system to prevent this from going on. Because I do believe that we will
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's powerful. So at 30 years old, you've had experiences, and then you came home to a pandemic that many politicians don't necessarily have at the age of 30 years old. I'm going to leave you with a thought before we move on to China. Africa has 3.5 billion people. America has 300 million people. America lost 1 million people during the pandemic. Africa lost $200,000 during the pandemic. And then you just made a statement relative to the need to have modern medicine and modern healthcare systems. And you have a country that is perceived as a third world country with almost 5-6 times the number of people that we have, but yet they had 800,000 fewer deaths. But I want you to resonate with that for a second before I come back to you and ask you why that happened, and go to China. And China, tell us a bit about your background and your advocacies and why you feel you're a better candidate than those that are in the district now.
Definitely. So the number one reason, well, my work is not just advocacy. And I think that is a huge difference, because advocacy is a lot of, talking and pushing and saying, this is what you want to happen, but I actually get it done. And that is light years beyond advocacy. So I can say this 4 acres in Baltimore City is no longer a city dump because I raised $3 million to clean it up and then hired the contractors to do it. I can say these 100 plus people are hired because I brought this tenant into a jobs campus that I'm building. They opened in 2017, and more than 80% of their jobs went to people without a college degree. That's over 100 people employed who were not gainfully employed before, or who were underemployed before. And then I can say these 3 schools in West Baltimore are not shutting down because I led a leadership team, led a group of people in fighting Baltimore City Public Schools to not shut down the schools. But not only that, what's even better, well, 2 of them, they were given a 1-year extension. So, and that was all that we could get, unfortunately. But one of them was taken off the list entirely, which is great. So that's Stewart Hill Academic Academy and Utah Marshburn that got the 1-year extension. And then Dr. Bernard Harris was taken off the list entirely. And I also testified in support of Creative City Charter Schools. So I testified at all of the board hearings, called each one of the school board members, personally, and organized a press rally and did all of the talking points behind the scenes, brought the cameras out, and made sure that we were in all of the media publications, the Baltimore Sun, the Baltimore Brew, the Baltimore Bulletin, whatever the case may be. And so that to me is what the work looks like. It's not just standing up and saying what should be done. It's actually doing it. And that's what I bring to the table. And the reason that I believe I'm able to do it is because I understand the economics at play. And I'm able to make that kind of an argument or approach the situation differently because I understand where the numbers are and what they're doing. But my background is that I'm a corporate lawyer. I used to be a foster mom. I'm a corporate lawyer. But back in 2005, I had open heart surgery, and it wasn't clear that I was going to live from that surgery. And so I just kind of prayed, if I live from this, Lord, then what I'm going to do is make the work that I've been doing in my volunteer life, I'm going to make that work my full-time work. And so I lived through it. God is very faithful. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So, I had always been very interested in, or very committed and dedicated to kids who were at risk, who were having challenges. One thing that nobody knows about me is that when I was growing up, and well, I say nobody because this is only the second time that I'm actually saying it publicly. But when I was growing up, I had a stepdad who, was addicted to heroin. And so from ages 5 through 14, that experience is really what shaped me and really what drove me to focus on my books at school, to be very immersed in the church, because I just didn't want to be another worry to my mom. And fortunately, we're moved on from that situation now, and everybody is healed, and my mom is happily remarried, and my stepdad now is like absolutely amazing. But I understand intimately what's happening with our kids in West Baltimore, and the pain and the confusion and also the shame, that comes from, being in certain situations that you couldn't control, that you wouldn't have chosen if you could have chosen. And then just trying to figure out a response to that when you're still a child. And so a lot of that shapes and drives me to do what it is that I'm doing.
Wow. Let's go to, and I mean, that's a compelling story, heart surgery, weren't sure you were going to live, and here you are, and like you say, all your work is in advocacy because you have actual
I built
proof
it.
of-
I literally built it.
Absolutely, man, and I get that, and so why not look at candidates, and a candidate up here, actually, Michael Eugene Johnson is tuned in apparently, and he knows both of you and feels both of you are the real deal. I was going to invite him.
Oh, and Michael Eugene Johnson.
Michael Johnson's a wonderful. Michael's running for Baltimore City Public Schools board position, and hopefully we'll get him on before the election before the final day of the election on the 19th. But I want to talk a bit about education. For both of you, education was important. Johns Hopkins, Stanford University, Poly, so education was important to you, important to your family. We have in this state, in Black communities, and we talk about Prince George's County, Baltimore City, where we're talking specifically Dorchester County across the bridge, we have some of the more atrocious numbers in our community, right? So we passed the blueprint, we passed Kerwin, which gives billions of dollars, but somehow I don't know if that's the answer. And let's start with you, China, then we'll go to Logan. In a minute or two, tell us what it is that you feel you could affect educationally that will really take hold and change our educational system.
There are, I would say, 3 things that need to happen. Number 1, the kids got to go to school. I mean, the kids are just not going to school, and no one wants to deal with the attendance problem. And unless the children are going, it does not matter how much money we throw at education. If they are not in the classroom, it's literally not going to matter. I was foster mom, as I mentioned before. And when the way I became a foster mom is actually one of my pro bono clients, because I represented foster kids, ended up in a homeless shelter for youth. And when I went to go talk to her to think through her placement, I could just see that she was totally vacant behind the eyes. And I just said, you know what? I just knew we were losing her. And if she didn't have immediate intervention, then we were going to lose her to the same sort of diseases and so forth that got our parents. And so I said, look, it's easy to find you another lawyer, but why don't you come home with me and I'll be your foster mom? Because she had level 3 services. She had, kind of a lengthy history that was going to make it very, very difficult to place her. And she agreed to that. When she came to me, she had been going to school only 50% of the time. So half of her school days she missed. She just stayed in bed, didn't go to school, did whatever. But with me, we got her attendance rate up to 90%. Once she started going to school, she all of a sudden got her first A on her report card that she had ever had.
Going to school is one, right? So
going to school. The second thing that we need to the second thing we need to do is we really need a completely different approach to getting kids learning the trades. Like vocational, to me, like the way to build Baltimore back better, that path runs through the trades. And what we need, what's best practice, are basically probably about 2 high schools, regional high schools in Baltimore City that all other high schools feed into. And the kids can go to those high schools. They will have the state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art instruction. And you go there your junior and your senior years, and you graduate with your licensure. That is absolutely so critical. And some people will, you apprentice during your junior and your senior years. And some people will say, oh, if they're high school kids, they can't apprentice. No, Baltimore City can create the apprenticeships for them by partnering with the group to rehab vacant houses so that the kids can get the experience that they need, the apprenticeship hours that they need on our vacants, so that by the time they're seniors, they're graduating. All the data shows that a dollar spent on making sure kids have their licensure from high school is so much better than having them go through, so much more effectively spent than having them go through post-secondary. So we really need to make sure that kids are getting trades.
Apprenticeship, going to school, apprenticeships that contribute to community development or using their apprenticeship skills to
absolutely, and then they'll be able to go to college. They can pay their way through because now they have a skill. They can earn, $1,000 on a weekend to help pay their way through college because they spend 5 hours doing a plumbing job.
Absolutely.
So it literally is a win-win. I mean, I manage construction. I lead construction because I'm a nonprofit commercial developer through my work as CEO of a nonprofit. And I can't think of any better college preparation for those who want to go to college than being in the trades.
What's three? What's three? You mentioned three.
Yeah.
Right?
The number three thing, and not, these are all to me equally important. So even though it's three, it's not necessarily last. But we have to have smaller class sizes, and we cannot keep shutting down schools in Black neighborhoods. So what we're ending up with, because we have stagnant and declining population because we're losing population in our Black working class neighborhoods, we're shutting down the schools. And instead we get a 21st century school, which is great, but it serves like a collection of neighborhoods, which means our kids have to walk further to get to school, or they may end up taking the bus, or whatever the case may be. They have to rely on their parents. And in communities where 60% of the people lack access to a vehicle, the kids don't go. If it rains, if the bus is late, whatever they just don't go to school. So we still need to hold on to our neighborhood schools. Those are the foundation of community, no matter what color the community is. When the city and all of the partners were doing EBDI over Eager Park out East Baltimore, they moved 753 families and leveled all those houses. And after all the people were gone, the first thing that they built was what? A school. Oh my gosh. That means that the school is the foundation for the community. Here we know we need to rebuild our Black working class communities, but we won't put schools at the center. Instead,
maybe that school that they built wasn't intended for the people that they kicked out, the 753, but for the future gentrification process. And maybe that's why they did it. And, we'll get back to you. I want to get to Logan and hear his thoughts of education because, smaller class sizes, kids aren't going to school anyway. So do we need to lock up parents that don't participate in PTA? Do we need to offer monetary incentives for parents to?
I didn't say lock up. Did you say lock up?
I did. You didn't.
Oh, I did. Okay. I don't think we should. No, I don't think we should.
That was a question. I said, do we need to lock up?
Oh, no.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we're at a point of desperation and we know education is the way and we have a lack of participation. We want to blame the political process for everything, but parenting starts at home. You can't send your kids to school to be parented. At some point we have to take accountability. Logan, let me hear from you, man. Education was important to you, important to your family, part of the foundation of your candidacy. What is it that you see that we need to do to change the dynamics here in Baltimore from an education perspective?
I think, the son and grandson of teachers. So education is critical for me. Like China said, we definitely need vocational training opportunities at every school. Every child at every high school should have the opportunity to have an apprenticeship and a skilled trade certification when they graduate, if they choose that path. Right now, the average starting salary for Baltimore City high school graduate is $16,000. $16,000. So we know that skilled trades can easily bring in six-figure incomes. We need to have a massive investment in skilled trades infrastructure at all of our high schools so that children can take that path if they so choose. We also need to have advanced math science programs. This economy is going to be based around math and science, computer science, technology. We need to make sure our high school students are equipped with that knowledge to take that path if they so choose. Programs such as Ingenuity Project, programs such as Poly need to be expanded to every school so that every child has the opportunity for advanced math science programs. We also need early literacy interventions and investments. We have a large population of students who are under grade level And we know for a fact that being under grade level is a threat to them graduating from high school. So really invest in that early literacy and take at-risk students and have them have year-round enrichment to catch them up to grade level. So those are some of the things that I'm focused on. And also school-based health centers. That will allow us to expand healthcare access to the kids who need it the most. So those are some of the things that I'm focused on.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that response from both of you. And this is Mike Haynie sitting in for Doni Glover on the Doni Glover Morning Show. We've got Logan Endow, who's a candidate for delegate for the 43rd District here in Baltimore. China Terrell for the 40th District for candidate for delegate. And we have them on because we want to hear a difference, right? We are so done with the usual politics in our city, state, and country that get us the usual results we talked about earlier. 3.5 billion people in an underdeveloped, mostly country or continent of Africa, or at least that's the perception. 315 million in this country, but 800 million deaths in this country. And let me ask you, is it because we have a hidden economy and the capitalistic system is such that the Kerwin money, the art money, doesn't really reach the people? And let's ask you that question first, Logan. Is money the root of all evil in this country and in this state, that the people don't really get to it and benefit it? And if that's the case, how will you ensure to the issues you outlined in your community, the money gets to people?
Yeah, like I think in a sense that it is, it's like we need to make sure our politicians are working for the public interest. You know, I believe in campaign finance reform. You know, you have a lot of times where people who are contracting with the city are joining the politicians and basically shifting their interest to that. We can't just put all of our money downtown. We need money in our actual neighborhoods as well. We need to invest in communities where there are vacant houses. We spend $75 million as a state rebuilding or demolishing, if needed, vacant houses in Baltimore. We should have exponentially more investment in that, because that has, you know, such a high return on investment of helping our neighborhoods, you know, stabilizing entire communities, reducing crime, reducing fire hazards. We lost a firefighter this year because of that. So that's really, for me, is something that's critical. And also making sure that we're spending money in a way that we can calculate the return on investment, just like we're running a business. We know that investing in ventilation in buildings helps air quality, helps reduce COVID outbreaks, helps keep things open whenever there's a new variant. We need to invest in things that we know work and that we know have a positive impact on our economy and society. And that's what I'm focused on. Really making sure we have those skilled trades, ensuring that we have, you know, school-based health centers, ensuring that we have community development that's equitable. That's what I'm going to push for, and that's what we're going to fight for in Annapolis.
So, Logan, how is it that we're assured? How are we assured that it's not business as usual, to the point that we have to talk about what you just did again and again and again? And if we elect Logan, it's not business as usual. How do you ensure people that it's not going to be business as usual with you?
I think it's just like the best, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. You know, like I had, you know, incredible opportunities. I've been blessed by a great family that supported me. And I came back home to serve. You know, I spent the past decade doing gun violence prevention, emergency response, public health work, making life or death decisions to prepare myself to have a positive impact on our community. You know, I could have been in the private sector, could have worked in Silicon Valley or Wall Street and had a much nicer home and a car, but I wanted to do something that has a positive impact on other people. So I made that sacrifice. I put my head down. I worked hard my whole life. From childhood, I had a job. So that's really what I'm focused on, is really having a positive impact on our community.
So China, how about you? What is it that you will do, or what is it that you lay as a difference between you and the elected candidates and the other candidates running for that position in your district, that, you know, China does what? What's the difference in you versus everyone else? It's been business as usual all the time in the most dormant situations in our city, and we keep electing these leaders, and they all make these promises. But how do you distinguish yourself?
I think the number one thing that folks would say about me is that China values the people and she rebuilds the city. So if you look at all of our candidates who are running, there are probably only two people who are truly change agents, and that's me and that's Crystal Jackson Parker, of whom I'm also like very, very supportive as well. The others, it's absolutely the status quo. So when the city comes along with their eminent domain, which no other city uses anymore because they realize how devastating it is for communities, and they snatch homes from homeowners in Poppleton and kick renters out who have been living in their homes for 24 years, more than many people who own their home actually live in their home. Who stands up for them? I can tell you that I am the only person running for my seat who has showed up at those rallies in support of the people of Poppleton. I know at one point I was in New Jersey for a family event that I had to attend. The Save Our Block Poppleton rally was that night, and I drove 3 hours from New Jersey to Poppleton to be on time for the rally with my signs that I made in support of the cause. And then after the rally was over, drove 3 hours back to New Jersey. There was not another candidate there, not another incumbent there. And when even in our candidate forums, when folks get asked about it, they're clueless. They don't have anything to say. They say, oh, eminent domain is tricky. Like, we don't need more of the same old, same old. I can tell you that, I'm there and I literally get it done. I also testified in support of the people of Poppleton at their CHAP hearing. Still the only candidate there, the only person running, no incumbents whatsoever. But that's what we need. We need people who won't just pay the lip service, and people who say, oh, I knocked on all these doors and I understand what you want. What you told me is this. We need people who are actually just going to be all action. And that is the number one thing that people will say about me. I built the first permanent artistic light installation in a Black working class community in Baltimore because we need multi-million-dollar amenities in our neighborhoods. What works in downtown, what works around the water, also works in our Black communities, but we haven't been getting it. And that is why they're imploding. Unfortunately, God is very faithful. Now I'm in line to receive another $5 million so we can do an entire 1 mile walking heritage trail, through our Black working class neighborhoods. It's just, we have to understand the numbers. We have to know how to make the deals happen. We have to be all about the economics, and that's what I bring to this. It's not just,
do you believe in term limits?
What'd you say?
You believe in term limits?
Definitely. I believe in term limits. Absolutely.
So you're on the record believing in term limits. What should the term limit be for a delegate?
Well, the term limit for governor is 8 years. And so I think the question is, do delegates need to be there longer than the governor?
Well, that's the question for you. That's the question for you. On the record, do you believe that 2 successive terms as delegate is enough? And will you advocate for that if elected?
I would say maybe that it would be 3, because I think that there's something.
So you're on the record for 3 terms as delegate, 12 years. That's what you'd be on the term for, right?
I need to think it through in terms of what's the exact number, because the way the legislature works right now is that, it's about seniority and working your way up to certain positions so that you can have more influence.
Okay, well, we're going to let you think that through. We're going to let you think that through, because I think that that's one of the issues that prevents people like you and Logan from being able to be elected, is the fact we don't have term limits. Same question for you, Logan. Do you believe in term limits? And if so, are you going to advocate for that change? And what do you think it should be?
Yeah, I do believe in term limits, especially for executive positions. So attorney general, comptroller, state's attorney, mayor of Baltimore, comptroller of Baltimore. These executive positions, for me, definitely need term limits. I do believe in term limit of 8 years. You should not be serving, because you can't really hold people accountable. Once you have incumbency, it's almost impossible to beat an incumbent. For legislative races, the term limits should be a little bit longer. I'm not sure what the exact numbers should be, but for executive positions such as state's attorney, attorney general, comptroller should be 8 years and you're out.
So you're 30 years old.
Yes.
You're 30 years old. You've got Regina Boyce, for instance. You have, let's say, Kurt Anderson. They decide to run for 20 years. You got to wait till you're 42 years old to be affected. You're one of the younger candidates that is running in a office in the city, I believe. But yet, because of the relationships they have, the longer they stay in office, the more special interests you see. And so here you are, you're saying that you seem a little shaky on the term limit thing.
No, I strongly believe in term limits. Like, I think it should be 12 years for legislators. It should be 8 years for executive positions.
Do you believe in it strongly enough to advocate for that when you're in office and to ensure that that's something that you do, is that you, after 3 terms, will move on?
Absolutely.
Are you saying that?
Absolutely.
What would be the first bill that you put forward when you got into office to show the sense of urgency and to show voters who voted for you that you were serious about what you were saying?
I think for me, it's like the number one focus is campaign finance reform. So making sure that we clean up some of our campaign finance and ethics laws. That's my number one priority.
So what would your bill look like?
For term limits, we can amend the Constitution. There'd be more political will for the executive positions. So to amend the Constitution so that Attorney General and Comptroller both have term limits. Because we've seen Attorney General stay there for 20 years unchallenged. We've seen Comptroller stay there for 20 years unchallenged. And then try to push for term limits of 12 years for state legislators as well.
So you're saying that the first bill that you would draft and put forward would be a term limit bill for the state attorney general and for the controller? Is that the first bill you would draft and put forward?
No, on this issue, that would be the first bill. Well, the first bill that I would draft and put forward in general would be for campaign finance reform and ethics.
Wow.
Yeah,
that'll make you some friends. That'll make you some friends, huh?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, that there has to be something that excites voters to go in a different manner, in a direction than what we have seen in our history so far. Someone that isn't going to go along to get along. And you're right, campaign finance reform needs to happen. It's ridiculous out here. And the special interest money that affects and influence candidacies that keep people like you in China from having the opportunity to serve. China, what would be the first bill? Hey, sweetie, is this your campaign manager?
This is definitely my campaign manager. Her name is Elaine, and she is 5.
Hey, Elaine, how are you?
I told her she's not allowed to talk.
Oh, that's unfortunate. We'll let her talk before it's over. But what would be the first bill you would put forward, China? What would be your first bill?
My campaign is all about making folks safer, healthier, and wealthier. And to do that, the number one thing we need to do in Baltimore City is raise incomes. People in the city do not make enough money, and so many candidates misunderstand the affordability issue in Baltimore, housing affordability and so forth.
So what does that look like in a bill, China?
It means people need to make more money. And so my first bill would be a guaranteed jobs program. So right now, the city works so hard to connect people who are underemployed, unemployed, not having enough resources. They could work hard to connect them to services and to resources. But in all honesty, we just need a guaranteed jobs program where we have hundreds of people assigned to each neighborhood to clean up the trash on the street and in the alleys and to pick up the illegal dumping. It's the number one thing, especially in West Baltimore anyway, that folks complain about, the fact that it's trash everywhere. Now, in some neighborhoods, people are paid to come get the trash. Okay. So in the the Midtown Benefits District has, there's a special tax and people come get it. But I don't believe that people should have to pay a tax in order for their trash to get picked up. I think that we need a guaranteed jobs program where no matter your record, no matter anything, if you show up, you work that day, then you get a job and you get cash apt, or you get daily cash at the end of the day.
Wow. Now that's powerful. So you're hearing from China.
Yeah.
You're hearing from China a guarantee, because China, I'm sorry to interject here,
Yeah.
This is crucial because we want to hold you accountable to that. So you're
Yeah.
hearing from China that she wants to put legislation in, guaranteed job, meaning if you go somewhere, clean up, that we cash app you cash, and it comes from state funds, right?
Yep.
Anybody, regardless of whether you're a
a state and city supported guaranteed jobs program that pays daily cash and offers training, quite frankly. But both. But yes, because there would have to be a little bit of training, so you get paid for that too. But yes, that's right. A state and city supported guaranteed jobs program that is focused on conserving and cleaning Baltimore City streets and alleys, and you get paid at the end of that day, and that connects us to so many other issues in this city that need to be resolved, right? It connects us to, the squeegee kids on the corner who are at the corner to get daily cash, that kind of a thing. But we've got to have a guaranteed jobs program.
Well, that'll be interesting to see how that looks, and I think that'll be interesting to see how you write that, because you look at candidacy such as you and Logan, right? And people want to understand when you go to Annapolis in January, how are they going to feel that to what you campaigned and sold them on to go against, right? It's going to be a tangible thing. So it'd be interesting to see what that looks like. I've had a chance to look at your website and look at what you say. The same thing with Logan. Some make sense. Some I say, wow, man, that would be powerful if that could happen. And so let's deal in the reality. So you mentioned squeegee kids. So question for you, Logan, and we'll go to China after this. Crime prevention. Many of the issues with crime center around young people your age, Black males, 30-ish, under 30. What is your take on crime in Baltimore, and how do you see instituting or developing a plan to really affect change? What does that look like from your perspective?
I think it's two main aspects. First, we need to get guns out of the hands of dangerous people. So make sure that we have red flag laws and extreme risk protective orders, so that domestic violence abusers, so that repeat violent offenders, so that other high risk individuals do not have access to weapons to act on their intentions. And the other thing is just targeting at-risk people with positive interventions to get them on a better pathway. So job training programs, vocational training programs, social work and mental health programs, wraparound services in general to get them on a positive pathway and out of a life of crime. So that's what I'm focused on. Is really having both aspects, having wraparound services and having a pathway out of that situation.
Hey, so question for you, yes, no. The best way to deal with bad guys with guns is good guys with guns.
I don't believe that, because the thing is, it's like,
So your answer is no.
No.
So you're saying to me that the fact that you're saying get guns off the street, right? And it's been proven that we haven't been effective in that. Me as a citizen, what is my means of protecting myself? Can you answer that?
I think it's the difference between illegal guns and legal ownership of weapons. So I think for me, it's like my main focus is restricting the flow of illegal guns into our streets. So making sure that we empower the Attorney General to go after straw purchasers, making sure that we empower the Attorney General to go after people who are doing gun trafficking, after gun stores who are funneling guns in the black market, making sure that we have security of weapons. So to prevent young people from getting access to those weapons. And then also making sure that we protect women who are in domestic violence situations where their partner should not be having a gun. So that's what I'm focused on.
Powerful. China, question for you. And we're down to the last few minutes, and I want to give each of you time to really hit home with your candidacy. China, do you believe in abortion?
Yes. So you said, oh, whoops, hold on. Sorry. Just one.
I understand.
There you go. All right. Okay. Sorry. That was my daughter. So you said, I did hear the question. Is this the one?
Let me repeat the question again, because this is important that you hear the question to what the issues is out there. Do you believe in abortion?
Oh, the abortion? Is that what you said?
Do you believe in abortions?
So I have had one, and I believe that nobody should. Yes, no one should be able to control what a woman has to do, or I mean, I don't wish that on anyone. I don't wish the circumstance of having to make that choice on any woman. But I definitely believe that right now, especially for the state legislature, we need as many women as possible. And so it's not about, do I believe in it? I don't think any woman ever wants to have to make that choice. But sometimes that's a necessary choice, and only the woman can determine whether that choice is necessary for her or not. And I love the Lord, and I'm a Christian, and that and everything. I'm very strong in my faith, but unfortunately sometimes you find yourself in circumstances where certain choices may feel necessary. And so to that extent, I really believe that we have to have more women, especially in our legislature right now, where whether one has access, how one has access, is all going to be determined by the 141 people in that General Assembly. And so my personal experience is that nobody should be influencing that choice for a woman. No one should be controlling that right.
Well, I heard what you said, and I love the background, because you know what? It's okay, China. This is what it's all about. Your child had her voice. She said you told her not to say anything. I love the voice, man. It's all good. But what I heard you say is that you believe in a woman's right to choose, and you may not necessarily the abortion question. So I'm going to go to Logan. Logan, question for you. Do you believe in abortions?
No, I believe in a woman's right to choose.
Is there a difference there?
No, there's not really a difference as far as
So
I see.
there's no difference in the question of whether you believe in abortions versus whether you believe in a woman's right to choose.
Yeah, I'm pro-choice, and I don't believe that the decision should be made between like a woman and her doctor, not the government.
Both of you, final thoughts. We'll start with China. What I'd like for you to do is take 2 minutes and implore candidates. Matter of fact, I got probably, because we may go a little bit, because I got another question for you guys, but I want you to, tell candidates why it should be you and not business as usual. 2 minutes, China. And the same thing for Logan after you finish.
Sorry, was that Logan first? Okay, that's me first. So the reason that it should be me, and the reason that I'm not business as usual, is because I really believe that candidates have to look at someone's results and determine whether or not that they're going to vote for that person. Everyone sounds good, and everyone sends out beautiful literature. Everyone sends out flyers with people posing and smiling, and they've asked their friends to be in these pictures, and they're pretending to talk to people on the street. But if you in reality say, all right, how is Baltimore City different because you live here? And then I think that's where people begin to come up short. And so one, we have to ask people, what are their receipts? What are their receipts for having lived in the city, and over what time period have they been able to create and produce those receipts? The second thing is, do you have a vision for West Baltimore? Do you have a vision for its people? Right now, West Baltimoreans are poorer than people in Mississippi. And we live in the wealthiest state in the nation when we count by per household income. So if we live in the wealthiest state in the nation when we count by per household income, then why is it that in West Baltimore we're actually poorer than the poorest state in the nation? It literally does not make sense. And so I think that there are a lot of people who have spent 20 years of their lives, and they've been doing poverty programs and services. And yes, we need that because the people are poor. However, I believe that people who have when one has interacted with our community only in that way, then it's very difficult, I think, for them to have a vision of the fact that, in West Baltimore, we have the grandchildren of doctors and of lawyers and of educators, right? Thurgood Marshall comes from West Baltimore. And so what we need is to remind the people of who they are. And we need to also remind the politicians of who it is that they work for, right? The people who are working class today are the grandchildren of doctors and lawyers and of educators, and they don't need to be working class. There is a better life for them. And so I believe that we really have to have someone who has the vision to be able to remind people of who they are, because I think we've forgotten. I think we've forgotten who we are, and I think the people in office have forgotten who it is that they really represent.
But you want them to remember to vote for China Terrell.
Yes, vote for China Terrell,
I'm
delegate
put the website up here in a second.
Yep, my website is ChinaTerrell.com.
Mr. Endow, same thing, 2-3 minutes, man. Tell people why you're the candidate to vote for on the 43rd.
I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show, but I grew up in this district. I understand our communities on the diversity of the district. I can marshal across every neighborhood, demographic, and class, the brilliance of our community to tackle these problems that we face, whether it's gun violence, whether it's public health emergencies, whether it's educational opportunity. We need someone who will follow in the footsteps of greats such as Senator Mary Washington and Mary Pat Clark, and be grassroots activists. We need a battle axe in Annapolis who will go against the status quo and fight for the interests of our community at all costs by any means. And that's who I'm going to be. I have a decade of experience making life or death decisions, working in emergency response, public health, and education. And I will use that and use that to work for our district, to push us forward, to bring us our rightful share. We're paying some of the highest taxes in the state, and we're not getting the services that we deserve. We're not getting the investments that we deserve. And I will fight to rectify that.
I'd like to thank both of you for being on today, particularly on such short notice. Good luck to both of you in your candidacies.
Thank you so
we
much.
need you. We need you. We need your messaging. Keep your enthusiasm up. I know you're in the last few days. We need you both. We need fresh faces, fresh ideas, fresh energy in Annapolis and in our communities. So good luck to you both. You're listening again to Mike Haynie, guest host for Doni Glover on the Doni Glover Morning Show. We'll see you Monday at 9 a.m. when we talk about crabs and the crab industry and why we're paying so much for crabs from a black waterman over on the Eastern Shore. And hopefully we'll also be talking to Tharu Vigaraja, the candidate for state's attorney. Have a great weekend. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for being patient with my daughter, who totally
I
had
love you, daughter.
background.
Love you. Y'all take it easy. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
all.
all. Bye.
Have a blessed day now.
Thank you.